Hello everyone, welcome to Smart Code and another tutorial on CSS. So I discussed CSS specificity a while ago and talked about how it works and calculated. And once you have good idea about specificity, then your next step should be learn some techniques to change and increase specificity. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you some techniques and tips that you can use to change and increase specificity value of your selectors, right? Are you ready? So let's get started. Take a look at the HTML file. We have a paragraph with a class and an ID applied to it. And we will target this paragraph using different selectors varying in specificities. So the first selector that one can write to select the paragraph tag is type selector. And as you know from the specificity tutorial, the specificity value of this type selector is just 1, right? It's very low. And a very cheap way to increase specificity here is you can apply descendant selector with whole lineage. Like you can write HTML and body as prefix to p element. And now the specificity is increased to 3, right? Now, in order to get higher specificity, you actually need to work with either the class or the ID selector. As you know, the class selector has a specificity value of 10. And if I make a small improvement here and change the p tag selector to its class selector, then it will give me a total specificity of 12, right? And using the same technique, if I change the class selector with the ID selector, then the specificity becomes even more higher, like 102. Right, so everything is very simple up till now, and there wasn't anything tricky. But now I'm going to show you some tricks which you can use to get even more higher specificity. And let me tell you one thing, these tricks are completely valid to use in CSS. And for evidence, I will show you official documentation later on. One more thing that I want to say here is that how you use these tricks is totally up to you because it depends on what you are trying to achieve and the structure of your HTML, right? So let's check them out. I have a paragraph with a class applied to it, so I can write a selector by joining together the element p and the class content like this. And here you need to be careful about one thing. No space between the selectors. If you put a space between the selectors, then it will convert into the descendant selector. Now first try to read this selector out. It means select only p tag that has content class applied to it. Right, so this selector is bounded and restricted only to any p element that has content class and won't touch any other element containing the same class, right? I hope you understand what I mean. So the specificity here becomes 11. And in the same way, you can use ID selector together with the element. Like, and it simply means select any p tag that has ID text applied to it. And it will give you a specificity of 101. Okay, so let's go further. The interesting thing is that you can even use both class and ID together and write something like this. So this selector means target any p element that has class content and ID text applied to it, right? And it will give you a specificity equal to 111. And if you want, so you can add another class to the p tag, like a class important content. And then you can further extend the selector by adding the class. And so now the specificity that you get is equal to 121, right? Now the last trick that I want to show you is very interesting. You can simply repeat the same class or ID selector multiple times, and each repetition will give you more specificity. So check this one out. For example, you can write, or you can even write. So here in the first case, you will get a specificity of 30, and the last selector specificity is equal to 310. I know it looks weird, but it's completely valid. Take a look at the official website, and under the section 9 down there you will find a statement. Repeated occurrence of the same simple selector are allowed and do increase specificity. So you can use this technique without any doubt about the validity, right? So in this tutorial, you learn how to change and increase selectors specificity. And you should always try to write simple, easy to read, and elegant selectors, and should avoid writing complex selectors when the goal can be achieved by writing simple one. And think of the specificity only when there are conflicting properties. Otherwise, just forget the term specificity. So it's time to say goodbye and thanks for watching this video.